Welcome to Taste Buds. I'm Debra Eckerling, goal strategist, writer, and foodie. And today I'm speaking with Beth Lee, founder of OMG Yummy and author of the Essential Jewish Baking Cookbook and doer of oh so many different things. So, Beth, welcome.
Thank you so much, Deborah. I'm so glad to be here because one of the things that you learn about me is that I can talk about food 24 hours a day and nothing makes me happier.
I think we have that in common. I am a reformed non-cook, so I've always loved to eat, but it's only I get to say almost 7 years ago that I found this love of baking and how it really baking cooking and how it enhances your life, which led me down this rabbit hole, this wonderful rabbit hole called food. How did OMG Yummy come about? Because you had a life before you were
Yes, I
food obsessed.
did. Yeah, I like to say that in 2010 I figured out that I like pita chips better than memory chips. Because I was very busy in Silicon Valley doing marketing and communications on the client side and the agency side, mostly for high tech companies. But I guess I'm a slow learner in some ways because it took me until 2010 to realize that food was really more, really my passion and what I wanted to do. And it came about, honestly, there wasn't a big plan. I mean, before I did all these projects and I figured I had goals and strategies and tactics and all that. This was more sitting around in the family room one day, and I think we had just come back from a trip with the kids. And the way our trips are, we plan our food and then we plan everything in between. And just kind of came to this realization that, I like to talk about food, eat food, make food, think about food all the time. And I think it was my son at the time said, Mom, why don't you just start writing a blog? If you love food, why don't you just start writing a blog? And then we got on the internet and looked up names, and OMG Yummy came up as not being taken. And people always we'd sit around with people eating and they go, oh my gosh, this is yummy. So we just like that's how it came about. There wasn't a plan. I'd know what I was going to do with it, where I was going to go with it. But sometimes those are the best changes of direction in your life. And when I grab onto something, I really like to kind of dig in and figure it out. And I went to a couple of uh, uh, conferences, one of them, I think, on social media, and one of them specifically about food blogging. And I just fell in love. Like I never looked back. And so I've been doing that ever since, and now written a cookbook. And I love to teach, absolutely love to teach. I love to do live demos and events. And I didn't know that about myself. Like it's like I take pictures. I like to be behind the camera, but I found out through this whole process I love to be in front of the camera. So, but who knew? Like I didn't know that. I didn't know that about myself in my former career, maybe because I didn't have to. I don't know. But yeah, so it was kind of on a lark. It wasn't all planned. I didn't have a project plan and a strategy and goals. I just we said one Sunday afternoon, why don't you start writing about food? And I haven't looked back.
I think, in as much as I love goals and planning, even more than that, it's so important to feel fulfilled in some, if not all, of your life. And with food, you get to be fulfilled and filled. So it's like
Yes,
win-win, right?
yes, yes, exactly, exactly.
And so let's talk about your cookbook. So you love cooking. I'm gonna guess baking you love even more. Is that correct?
Well, yes and no. There's kind of a funny story to that. So the one of the first posts I wrote on my blog was when I wrote about saying I was dough-phobic, because in reality, before I started my blog, I was already a really good savory cook. I can't say I never baked, but baking was like kind of not my forte, wasn't my comfort zone. And in fact, I had this piece of paper, not just with what we were talking about earlier, Hamantaschen recipe from my grandma, but her challah recipe, all scrawled out and written out. And I'd never really tried to make it because I had a fear of dough. But once I wrote about it and once I was blogging and I felt like I needed to learn, wanted to learn, had the opportunity to learn, I just kept going with it, learning pie dough and learning cookies. And starting to make challah, and to the point that, yeah, in was guess during the pandemic, so late 2020, the opportunity to write the Essential Jewish Baking, if I can put it up, the Essential Jewish Baking Cookbook came up, and I felt confident enough that I could write a whole book about baking. But that isn't where I started. But I will say I'm so glad that I didn't let fear get in my way, because the other thing I wrote about on my blog early on is this whole idea that my grandmother, who was a fantastic baker, I write about her in the book. I call her Bubby, and she was a fantastic baker. She had six kids. Four of them were women, and of course, I say that because back then it would have been the woman more likely baking than the man. That's maybe not the case anymore, but even with the six kids and the four girls, none of them became bakers. So I feel like I kind of, the older I got and the more I got into food, the more I became like really, I didn't want it to disappear. I didn't want it to like skip another generation. And that's also one of the reasons I write the blog too. And I really love the fact that I wrote the book is I feel like it's so important to pass this on, to not lose the recipes and the techniques and the confidence and the joy that we all get from baking. So yeah, I learned, I evolved.
Amazing. And so from from reform non-cook to food writer and food podcaster, we have me, and from dough-phobic to writing a baking cookbook. Was there ever a question that it would be a Jewish cookbook, or was that always part of your thing?
Well, so I was actually approached to write this book. I won't go into a long explanation, but my cooking is a bit eclectic. So if you go to my blog, you won't find just Jewish food, because my husband he's California native, but his parents were from Hawaii and his grandparents were from Korea, and he's not raised Jewish. I was raised Jewish and I'm an Ashkenazi Jew, but also American born, and I have Polish and Russian background. So we have a very eclectic mix of cultures and foods that we love. And on top of that, I have a love for Middle Eastern cuisine and Middle Eastern ingredients like preserved lemons and sumac and za'atar. So you're going to find all of that on my blog. And I I could really get excited about writing about any of those, going in any of those directions, but definitely passing on. So when I was approached to write this book, everything about it felt right. I felt confident enough in my baking, and I feel like it's so important to pass on this legacy, of Jewish baking, and it's not just Ashkenazi baking. So it gave me, we have Sephardic recipes in there, Mizrahi recipes in there, and it gave me an opportunity to learn so much. And I've had so many people come to me, who say, "Oh my gosh, my grandmother made this, but I don't have a recipe for it. Now I do." I mean, everything about it felt right to approach it. So no, it isn't. It wasn't just, oh my gosh, I'm going to write just a baking Jewish books. That's what I want to do. But it was definitely part of what I wanted to do, and everything about the timing of it felt just right. So I just launched into it, and I don't regret a second of the effort, time, and love and everything that went into it. I will always be proud to have this book.
Uh, it's such a testament in y- as an author myself, I know what it takes to write a book, and it's your baby.
Yes,
And
yes,
there is the same amount, well, I don't have kids, but there is a great amount of joy of bringing a book into the world as well.
absolutely.
And the missions, so these recipes stay alive, I think is huge, right?
Oh, I mean, I seriously, like, I don't want to get, emotional with you, but it means so much to me for so many reasons to have these recipes in here that will make sure that because a lot, not all of them, but many of them started from friends or family or people I was introduced to, or people I found in the Sephardic Facebook group or the Jewish cooking group or wherever. A lot of them started as family recipes, and to know that they will always be here and that people can turn to this book and find something that they might have found in their grandma's kitchen or their mom's kitchen or the great grandma's kitchen, or something they just want to be able to know that their kids or grandkids will have. It's super, super important to me. So yes, it's being able to pass that on and know it will live in a book is super gratifying to me. And I'm not saying that with any like it's not cliche to me at all. Like it really, really is a lot of the reason that I wanted to write the book. So yes, 100%, you hit the nail on the head.
I have to mention the preserved lemons because it is in your bio that you love preserved lemons. So where did this preserved lemon love come from?
So, so my first friend that I ever made when I moved to California is still my friend, and she and I, we went separate ways in our careers and where we lived and all that. But she landed back in California, and through our separate ways, we both also ended up in food. She before me, and was actually used to write a column called Fringe Food for a real newspaper, you know, not something, not when there were still, you know, newspaper columns and all that, which I know there still is, but you know what I mean, like way back. Anyways, she and I were so excited when the Jerusalem Cookbook was coming out by Ottolenghi and Tamimi. And we just like said something to each other on Twitter, kind of almost casually, like, wouldn't it be great to start a group to cook through the book? And we did. We've ended up. We still have the group, which we've now renamed to Sumac and Sunshine. But the whole idea was not just cooking the recipes, but learning about the ingredients, because that's what keeps people from, you know, really diving into sometimes to a new cuisine. Is they're like, where do I get the ingredient? How do I use it? What else am I going to use it for? So we took the lens of, here are all the ingredients, and one of the ingredients is preserved lemons. And I have a lemon tree in my backyard, a Meyer lemon tree, which I loved already. And then when I discovered that I could preserve them, and I fell in love with what a preserved lemon tastes like, I'm just, yeah, I'm the lemon lady now. I could talk also about preserved lemons forever. I just did a live about them on my Facebook page, and um, I just, yeah, that's basically how it started. And they're an amazing ingredient, and I encourage everybody to take a lemon, put a slit in it, put some salt in it, stick them in a jar, and wait for them to become a preserved lemon. They will change your life. They'll become your new favorite condiment in the kitchen.
So what do you do with them?
So
Other
any
than everything.
Well, right. So first of all, they're so cool because they can just sit in your fridge for a long time. So you get on a kick with something else, and then you cleaning out one of your shelves, and you go, oh my God, I had these preserved lemons in here. Well, they're still good. So that's great. But think about, they're like so when you preserve a lemon, you now use the rind. Okay, I mean, you can zest a rind, but you don't think about eating the rind of the lemon really, but you can, and that's what's so absolutely beautiful. Although I do use the whole thing, anyhow. So the rind, you think of the rind, and it tastes still like lemon, but like in this bigger umami, super lemony kind of way. So really, any place you need some lemon, preserved lemon can come into play. And so you think about it savory first, but in fact, they're really wonderful in a sweet way too. So you can, I have a recipe for a cheesecake where I use the preserved lemons in the cheesecake. I just posted today. Serene, who I mentioned about, we both fell in love with the Jerusalem Cookbook and then started this group. She and I both, she's the editor of Edible San Fernando Valley, and we did an article for her publication last July. We use preserved lemons in a blueberry muffin. So anyhow, think about pasta when you want to add lemon flavor, think about a marinade, about dressing. I made a tartar sauce recently. I mean, I'll be honest, some nights I can barely cook, and I took out, honestly, like Trader Joe's frozen fish fillets or something. But I made a tartar sauce, and instead of just putting a little lemon in the tartar sauce, I cut up a little preserved lemon and added it in. Oh my goodness. Like it's goes from being to like, wow, this is exciting. So any place you can use lemon, you can use almost you can use preserved lemon. The thing you have to think about is it's salty, but that can be adjusted too. So yeah, they're amazing.
And you know, I like to include a recipe with each episode, and we have to put the preserved lemon recipe in this article because I am first of all, I've got a lemon in my fridge that's just begging to be preserved, so I will have to do that and keep you posted.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent.
What other quick cooking tips do you have? Because you mentioned before that fear is a big problem people have with cooking. So, what are your recommendations to get over that and just get cooking?
So that's a great question. I love that question. I think it's hard for me to give one tip, but I would say pick an ingredient that you're not familiar with, perhaps, um, and buy it and use it, and like focus on one thing at a time, like as opposed to trying to learn a whole cuisine, or like focus on something simple. Maybe take a recipe you're already comfortable with and add this new ingredient to it, but don't overwhelm yourself. Start with something simple. And I hear people say a lot, um, I don't cook, I can't cook. Well, we can all cook. We may not think we love it. And in fact, I like to say that everybody has a food story, even people who say they can't cook. So I also think focusing on, something that excites you. Like, I okay, for example, um, there's a spice blend in Middle Eastern cuisine called za'atar. And that's actually how Serena and I both separately, totally separate occasions, became enamored with Middle Eastern ingredients as we tasted za'atar in a restaurant. They brought it to the table, they put some olive oil with it. And this is no joke, I practically tackled the waiter. I'm like, what is this flavor? And I wrote it down in my phone, in my notes, and I spelled it wrong. I still have the note. And but it made me really excited. The flavor made me excited. And it made me so excited that I've like not looked back and not stopped learning about ingredients that I used to not be familiar with from the Middle East. So also think about what excites you, something you've tasted that you really like, you want to taste it over and over again. Maybe use that to motivate you on what cuisine to learn, or what dish to make, or what ingredient to try. Because that's why you say, oh my God, yummy, because something gets your taste buds going. And so I think about also what excites you, because then you're going to want to create that in the kitchen, or find a way to get it into your kitchen, onto your table, into your mouth.
Well, I completely agree with you, and I said it recently. I say it all the time. You know, we love well, if you're tuning in, you love food, we think, you know, and everybody, even if they don't love food or love cooking, they have an opinion. Everybody's got that opinion, they've got that affinity towards it, but there's just that connection. The subtitle of the show is bite-sized conversations about food, cooking, and community because they go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Absolutely.
and everything that you were talking about is really a big example of that, from rescuing and bringing old recipes to life to just discovering that joy for yourself. So, what, and you said it's hard to give just one, so you can give a second one if you want. Some extra food for thought about getting excited about and cooking without the fear.
So I think, um, okay, let me think about that for a second. Um, I The food story and the connecting. Um, I think thinking about like a flavor memory or a food memory that's really important to you from your childhood, for example, and figuring out why and maybe going down that path, because that can really bring, like, wake people up and make them really excited. I early on I posted my grandma's bubla recipe. We call it a bubla. It's a matzah meal pancake. And there's like 3 or 4 ingredients. There's not much to it. But my mom helped me figure out what it was, and I posted it. My cousin, who he's much older than I am, and we really hadn't connected much recently. He somehow, I think maybe I sent the cousins the recipe or whatever. He made it. He showed it to his wife. She made it for him, and he wrote me this note about what that moment meant for him. Remember, like, it brought him back to sitting, and he said, in my mommy's kitchen, with her making this matzo meal pancake for me. And I swear to this day, when I read it, I cry. And it's just a connection that, it means so much to him. And I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know that. So I think also just thinking about what makes your eyes light up, what is a happy memory, maybe going down that path. And also, one other thing, like, don't be hard on yourself in the kitchen. I tend to be hard on myself. Just go with it. And most things, by the way, can be fixed. I think I'm on my 4th tip now, right? It's too salty. There's a way to fix that. It's too sweet. There's a way to fix that. It's too dry. There's a way to fix it. So don't be hard on yourself. And by the way, we have flubs, and all of us who get paid to do stuff in the food world, we mess up all the time. And we all need to be better about posting what we mess up. So, like, it's no big deal. If it doesn't come out great, it doesn't mean you're not a good cook. It just means you got to do something different the next time. And most things can be fixed right in the moment. Find someone like me that you can text. Like, I'll take texts from people or private messages, whatever. If they're in the grocery store, they don't know what to get, they're stuck, or they're cooking and it didn't come out right. My niece sends me a picture of it. I love that. Find your person who can, like, be on your shoulder in the kitchen, virtually, and encourage you, because you can do it. If I can do it, you can too.
So basically, you find your food tech support person. See, there you
There you
go.
go.
So
There you go.
you went from microchips to pita chips and back to technology.
I love
I
it.
love a good full circle conversation. Before we wrap, any final food for thought?
We covered so many good ones already. Keep your family recipes, find your family recipes, ask your mom, ask your grandma, your dad, your grandpa, anyone that you can. Even if you think you don't care about food, you don't like to cook, you don't think you want them, because someday you will. So, and now we have the technology, we have fun. When I was writing recipes down, I was doing it on a piece of paper with pencil and whatever. Like, now you have your phone, you go see your mom or your grandma, just turn the recorder on and ask, or take a picture, whatever. We have the technology now. Find and keep your family recipes, because even if you don't think you care, you will someday. I can't tell you how many people, when I was researching the book in groups, were like, oh, I wish I could give you that recipe. We didn't save them. We don't have them. Keep your family recipes. Document your family's food. You will care, or your kids will care someday, or your nephews, or whoever. Someone will care. Do it.
I think that's such an important message. And what a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Beth Lee, for spending time with me, just loving food with me today. Where can people learn more about you and your cookbook and everything?
The best place to go for everything, because there's links for all of it, is my blog, which is omgyummy.com. But I'm also OMG Yummy on Instagram, on Facebook, on Pinterest, if you're a Pinterest person. So just omgyummy.com, OMG on Yummy on any platform you're on. And like, if you want to learn more about the cookbook, there's a link right at the top. So and if you have questions or want to talk about food, I'm pretty much open 24 hours a day, because you just can't stop me. I love it. So come and say hi.
Awesome. Well, Thank you again, Beth Lee. And thank you for tuning into Taste Buds with Deb. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe on YouTube and or your favorite podcast platform. And you can go to jewishjournal.com/podcast to read the articles that go with each episode and get the recipes like the wonderful preserved lemon. I'm so excited to share that with you all. And you can learn more at tastebudswithdeb.com. Have no fear. Cook. Why not? You have nothing to lose and everything to gain, especially when you're diving into those Jerish family recipes. So until next time, bon appetit.